for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we stay on this topic now. Russia has reported that the death toll from an explosion at a military plant near the Ural city of Chelyabinsk has now risen to 12 people. According to national reports, the incident took place yesterday and also left 5 people injured. Local authorities have too confirmed the explosion, and the governor of Chelyabinsk, Alexei Texler, has stated that the fire has been already extinguished. Governor Texler has also assured that there was no threat to city residents or civilian infrastructure in the aftermath of the blast. Additionally, Russian investigators have opened a criminal case into this incident, but there is no evidence linking the explosion to any drone activity. Now for this discussion, we go back to Alison Mutler. She's a former AP bureau, joins us live from London. Thank you, Alison, for staying with us. Alison, going back to and building on our discussion from our first discussion, bringing India into picture, what are the geopolitical implications of India's potential adjustment which could follow after the U.S. sanctions are imposed, new U.S. measures?
Sorry, I caught the sound here isn't very good. Are you talking about the explosion in the Urals at the oil plant or the sanctions?
I was building on our first discussion, I was continuing that, and I wanted to ask, do you think India would follow or potentially adjust to US's demands about its crude oil imports, to curb the crude oil imports?
What it will happen. I don't know what effect these sanctions will have. I know the EU today is having discussions whether they are going to slap, I think it's the 19th set of sanctions on Russia after they overcame opposition by the Slovakian Prime Minister Robert Fico last night, who again is more pro-Trump than the other EU leaders. He has dropped his objection, so the EU is going to slap more sanctions on Russia, and they're very pleased that Trump has finally agreed to sanctions on Vladimir Putin. Whether other countries will follow suit, I don't know.
Thank you for sharing that. And Alison, today, talking about today's news, we also saw that there was I forgot, I don't recall which one was it, but a European minister who was talking about the potential risks and risk sharing in unfreezing the frozen Russian assets. So what do you think could be the potential consequences for Ukraine if Belgium's opposition delays or blocks the proposed reparation loan?
Yeah, we have this 300, I think it's, I can't remember, is it 300 billion, I'm not sure, of assets which are frozen in Belgium. Yes. And obviously that's a stand that the EU has taken, but it's a very tricky issue legally. And also it's very hard to get all the countries agreeing what to do with these sanctions. For example, in Romania has reparations it wants from, historical reparations it wants from Moscow. They shipped gold there in 1917 and they still haven't received it back. Other countries have reparations they'd like from Moscow. Whether it's legally possible to tap these assets to get to these Russian assets to get that back is another question. And there are also questions about what should this money be used for? Should it just stay there, or can it be used towards Ukraine's war effort? But it is a tricky legal issue, and it will probably involve international tribunals to decide what can be done with it rather than just sitting there. But again, it's another issue on the table. It's another issue that is putting pressure on Vladimir Putin and Moscow.
Thank you very much, Alison, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we stay on this topic now. 2 Ukrainian journalists have been killed in the eastern city of Kramatorsk by Russian drone strike. The attack was confirmed by local media and followed initial reports from the Donetsk regional governor. The incident adds to the rising tensions in the region, where media personnel have been targeted amid the conflict. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy also reported 6 deaths and at least 17 injuries after Russian strikes targeted cities and energy infrastructure across Ukraine. Zelenskyy has also stated that residential buildings were hit, with fires breaking out in Zaporizhzhia and damage reported in Kyiv. The attacks impacted several regions, including Kyiv, Odessa, and Dnipro. Ukraine's air defense forces and drone interceptors were actively responding. Now we go back to our guest discussion with Alison Mutler. She's a former AP bureau chief in Romania, joins us live from London. Thank you very much, Alison, for staying with us throughout this topic. Now, looking back and building on our discussion from earlier, do you think should EU collectively bear legal and financial liabilities tied to the frozen Russian assets?
Again, as I said before, it's a big question. It's a legal question. The assets are there. There are a lot of people who would like to get their hands on those assets, various things, whether it's the Ukrainian war effort. There are countries in the former Warsaw Pact, meaning former communist countries who are now in the European Union, like the Baltic states, like Romania, who have historical reparations they want from Moscow and would like the use of these assets, but it's a very tricky legal issue, and not just legal, it would require all the countries of the European Union agreeing. And as several countries have demands, then it's very tricky.
And lastly, Alison, what do you think if there could be, where could the next trilateral or bilateral summit take place in, if it were to take place?
Very good question there. I think for the moment, we've all been waiting for this meeting, or this summit to take place in Budapest in Hungary in the next couple of weeks. It's now been, not only has it been cancelled or cancelled, but there has been no plans for a new meeting. Donald Trump has said that he doesn't think any progress can be made in a ceasefire or ending the war in Ukraine. And so for the moment, he has no plans to meet Vladimir Putin. You know that Donald Trump is, in his peace efforts abroad, he's a man of president of action, and he doesn't like endless talks going on and on with no result. He wants results like we had in the Middle East. And if he feels he's not going to have any results in with the Ukrainian conflict, then he will just wash his hands of it, at least temporarily. He is waiting for a response from Moscow. If Moscow does come back to the negotiating table and offers something that Trump feels is acceptable, then we could look at a bilateral or a trilateral meeting. But for the moment, there is no bilateral or trilateral meeting on the horizon until we get a response from Moscow showing that he's understood the pressure that Trump and the European Union are putting on Russia.
Thank you very much, Alison Mutler, for joining us and sharing that insight throughout our news all the way from London. Thank you. Now we move on to Africa. Egypt